Good afternoon, you wee bastards, and welcome back to the second episode of Koality Time, our monthly series of podcasts where you lads can get a look behind the scenes on what's going on with me and the channel, and I can address your comments, answer your questions, and sit back, have a chat about some random topics, and share some stories. Yes, I know it hasn't been a month since the last episode. That's my fault. See, I uploaded the first episode on the 19th last month saying, bugger, I meant to upload it on the 17th because that's the anniversary of my channel, thinking I was 2 days late. Actually, the anniversary of my channel is on the 12th. Oops. So this series is going to come every 12th, not every 17th. And it's actually the 13th for me right now in Australia, but that'll make it the 12th for everyone in America, Britain. And it kind of does work because my first video I actually included commentary was uploaded on the 13th anyway. Let's have a talk about copyright on YouTube, because recently, I don't know how many of you are following Team YouTube on Twitter, but they announced several changes to the copyright filing process and the process of dealing with them in return. You might know if you're on my Discord server, the Koality, or any social media, which if you want to join there are links below, that I recently had to deal with this. In fact, I've had to deal with copyright claims on over a dozen videos over the last 2 years, almost half of which were illegitimate claims. But just a week or so ago, I had to deal with the more severe aspect of YouTube's copyright system, and that is a copyright strike, which was mildly terrifying for me as I've never had to deal with it before, but they can put you into a big pot of shit very quickly. And it's so incredibly rare that anyone at YouTube would take notice of a channel as small as mine in order to allow me to get out of it, whether I'm in the wrong or not. Now, a copyright claim can mean a number of things. Basically, either an automatic content ID system has detected the use of material that doesn't belong to you and claimed the video, or the rights holder of some of the content of your video has submitted the claim manually. The punishment for a copyright claim can mean either the lack of ability to monetize that video and just that video, or having it restricted in any or even all nations. I actually tried to upload a montage of some clips from the 24-hour charity livestream, but thanks to the fact that it got 9 separate copyright claims before it had even finished rendering on YouTube because of background music, it was restricted in all countries before it had even reached 100 views. Most commonly with a copyright claim, you just lose the ability to monetize that particular video and the revenue goes to the rights holder, which is a good system. The problems, however, are somewhat easy to see, one of which is more of an annoyance than the real issue. If 2 minutes of my 25-minute video used content that was copyright claimed, then I earn absolutely no money for the work done on that video. The claimant takes it all, laughing all the way to the bank. Now that's somewhat unfair. It means that for a video that took me 10 hours of work, every last cent is going to the holder of a 60-second video recorded on an iPhone, which took about as much effort as tying a shoelace. Having said that, claiming a part of someone else's video does not allow you as a claimant to use any of, for example, my original content, even from that video which they claimed, just as I can't use theirs. It does, however, create some very obvious problems with the type of content I've started uploading more and more of on my channel, which uses real-life footage captured by somebody else in order to review, research, and educate some of you on military equipment. This ties us into the other major issue with the copyright claim system, however, which come with the content that falls under fair use. For example, in a couple of my videos I've used the former Soviet national anthem, which obviously is no longer in use as a national anthem, and was claimed for copyright infringement. The thing is, any national anthem falls under public domain, meaning that I am completely free to use it and still monetize the video, and the former Soviet national anthem does count. Hence, I disputed those claims, won, and was able to reclaim the revenue from those videos. But the system of disputing false accusations of copyright infringement seems designed to strip all power from the defendant and hand it on a silver platter to the claimant, who can feel free to reinstate a claim that I've disputed without any evidence whatsoever that it breaches any law, and have my video taken down and my channel struck during this process. Now, before I get on to talking about copyright strikes, let me just give you a rerun of that, because it is so abusable it doesn't even seem real. Somebody creates some video footage. Let's say, for example, if you saw my most recent video on the T90's active protection system, they may own the video animation showcasing how the Russian autoloaders work. I am free to use this content under the fair use policy without any permission from the rights holder or any issue monetizing the video, because it is being used for education and or research purposes, which is stipulated in the fair use policy. Now, this didn't actually happen, but let's say the creator of that little animation is a particularly salty YouTuber and decides to submit a copyright claim on my video because I used content they had originally created. They have to provide no evidence whatsoever that I am actually guilty of even using their content, let alone why the use of it supposedly violates their rights. I then am faced with the choice of either allowing them to steal every cent of revenue from my video, regardless of what percentage of the video may actually breach copyright law, or disputing the claim through YouTube, who will then require me to submit evidence of why the content I'm using falls under the category of fair use and therefore is not eligible to be copyright claimed. Guilty until proven innocent. The original claimant can then decide, nope, I don't think I care about laws and evidence and all of that faff. I'm going to reinstate the claim regardless, which takes about 2 clicks and again requires no evidence on the claimant's part, and also submit a request for YouTube to take down that video and put a strike on the channel until this is resolved. Now, I will of course fight against the illegitimate claim, which has now become an illegitimate strike, and should I win, which obviously I will, I reclaim all revenue earned, and the strike on my channel is retracted. The thing is, you can only realistically fight 2 claims at a time, because they can both be refuted and come back with takedown strikes, and a third will result in the termination of your YouTube account. Even if that third claim is wrongful, since I can't fight it or prove it to be wrong without risking the termination of my channel even if I am right, that claimant gets to keep all my revenue for a video that breaches no rights violations whatsoever. Oh my god. Even when I do fight and win against illegitimate claims or strikes, there are precisely 0 punishments for unlawful claims besides that that person doesn't get my revenue. Yes, that is unfair. Yes, it is as bad as it sounds. At least that was the case until now. Now, I do need to go over what a copyright strike is, because we skipped that earlier. Well, it's rather simple. A strike is a manually filed claim, but rather than simply submit a complaint that a video violates a creator's rights, that creator has submitted a complete legal request for YouTube to not allow the content to be shown at all. And supposedly, before making this drastic a move, someone at YouTube will watch your video to verify that yes, it does actually breach copyright law. If it does, this results in a strike being put on your channel, which in previous years a single strike meant a large number of restrictions on your channel, only being able to upload 15-minute videos, not being able to monetize at all, etc. Nowadays, it's only the second strike that places limitations on your channel, and I believe the only potential restriction after a single strike is the inability to livestream, which I've always done on Twitch anyway, and I think most gaming content creators do. Ideally, a strike is placed if it is deemed that your content is not just breaching fair use or something, but for example, just re-uploading entire movies or videos created by other people. If your content is just mistakenly breaching copyright violations, which does happen and YouTube has shown that they understand this, a claim will be issued rather than a strike, with the video remaining up on YouTube, but the revenue going to the rights holder. But, and of course there's a but, there is absolutely no incentive, besides that it's a bit easier, for somebody to submit a manual claim rather than a strike, especially if the video has been uploaded for some time and isn't going to continue to earn much revenue. So Koala, if someone at YouTube has to actually verify a strike before allowing it to pass, how can the system be abused? Well, forgetting for a second that YouTube and Google have an obvious hate boner for video game content creators for some reason, as well as military content creators because Google sees anything that paints military content in a positive light as being right-wing white supremacy scumbaggery, But forgetting that, remember what I said earlier? A claimant who is reinstating an existing copyright claim does not have to have their takedown strike notice verified before a strike is placed on the channel, and considering that certain creators, typically big companies, can actually outsource other companies to handle claims and takedowns for them, frequently strikes will automatically be placed on your channel while a disputed claim is ongoing, even if you're fighting a completely illegitimate claim. At least that was the case until now. YouTube is currently rolling out some changes to the system of filing copyright claims and turning them into strikes, which are designed to shift the balance of power slightly out of the lap of the claimant and allow creators more tools with which to fight back, as well as reducing the potential for illegitimate claims or strikes. Firstly, claimants submitting manual claims must include information proving that the content does actually breach copyright law, and they have to timestamp said content. If they can't, or if the content they have timestamped is not eligible for copyright, there are also now punishments for submitting illegitimate claims in the form of what I like to call the wolf principle, and if any of you want to help me coin that term, please feel free, I think it sounds pretty badass. The idea of the wolf principle is the old story of the boy who cried wolf, or in this case, the creator who cried, "This violates my rights." Claim it falsely too many times and YouTube will take away your ability to submit future claims at all, legitimate or not. Now, this is the lesser of two evils, but this means that if somebody has legitimately just made some mistakes claiming content that doesn't actually breach copyright law more than a couple of times, then from that point on, and I don't know for how long this claiming embargo lasts, anybody else could theoretically re-upload that YouTuber's entire videos and they won't be able to fight back as they've submitted too many illegitimate claims and lost the ability to submit claims anymore. As I said, it is the lesser of two evils. It's better than having no punishment at all for false claims, and I severely doubt that that claiming embargo is permanent. It probably lasts a matter of a couple of months. Not only that, but there are still automatic systems that prevent the re-uploading of entire videos for profit, for example, without the rights holder actually having to do anything manually. See, the manual claiming system exists mainly for matters of fair use. Ideally, the automatic systems will find and shut down anybody that is blatantly stealing and re-uploading. But here we open a whole new issue. What does or doesn't count as fair use is so incredibly fucking vague that it has to be dealt with case by case. You can dispute a claim believing that your video falls under fair use, but it is down to the opinion of somebody on the other end to either accept or reject that statement, allowing them to reinstate a claim and put a strike on your channel with no due process or any third unbiased opinion. See what I mean by the claimant having all the power? Now, this ambiguity is there for the sake of being able to judge cases objectively, as well as amend or adjust laws given new content mediums that don't fit as neatly into the existing rules, which have been around since long before YouTube. But the ambiguity creates plenty more issues. For example, video content that is not original but used for research or education purposes is counted as fair use. But just how far this extends, nobody really knows. What if the video footage is simple background footage, designed as something just to look at, which relates back to what is being talked about? The footage in, for example, my K2 Black Panther video isn't generally actually necessary in order to get the informative content from the video, it's just there for something relevant to watch. So does that still count as fair use? Well, I've no idea, and neither does YouTube, Google, or any court or legal body in the world. Couple that with the hate boner that Google has for video game, and especially violent video game, or God forbid military enthusiast content, and you end up with some very one-sided claims or even lawsuits which would not have gone the same way if, for example, the video was a review of a smart car using someone else's footage. Because whether or not it actually counts as fair use, when it boils down, is a matter of opinion, and these new changes being rolled out do absolutely nothing to fix that. The ambiguity with fair use is still, well, it's the main issue. The other fantastic fix that YouTube has come up with is finally improving their Creator Studio editing system, which don't we all love YouTube's editing system. But it should now be easier to mute or replace any audio content that has caused claims, black out video content, or simply delete sections of a video, stitching the two remaining ends together. Basically, if I've made a mistake and included copyrighted content, I can still earn money for the video by just chopping it out in YouTube itself. Well, that sounds pretty good, Koala. What could you possibly have to complain about? Well, this fix is a bit like someone smearing shit on your face and then expecting you to be grateful when they wipe it off. The thing is, this only works for copyright claims because you can't edit a video that's been struck. You can't even re-download it from your own channel. Oh, whoops. We at YouTube would like to say that we forgot that bit. I swear I am not making this up. If a rights holder decides that they don't think a claim is enough, they can submit a request to have your video taken down, and your channel struck until the claim is resolved. Which it can't be, because once struck, you can no longer edit out the copyrighted content. You could download the video, edit it out yourself, and re-upload it. But oh wait, no you can't. You can't download a struck video either. And of course that's not being fixed or changed at all. Well done YouTube, you gloriously incompetent bastards. The irritating thing is that even if you quote-unquote stole someone else's content by mistake, or that you believed the use of it counted as fair use, and lo and behold someone with more power decided that it doesn't, removing the video doesn't actually remove the strike. Only the claimant can remove the strike unless they're found to be wrong, in which case YouTube will lift it from your channel. So basically, someone who attempts to make content that falls under fair use and makes a slight mistake is being lumped in with people who abuse and steal and told you're guilty until proven innocent. So Koala, how does this all relate to you? Well, some months ago I uploaded a video regarding British attack helicopters, which included footage of the Westland WH-64 Apache. In this video, I talked about the capabilities of these helicopters, the history behind them, and the potential of having them in War Thunder, using footage of them as background footage. The section of that 30-minute video on multiple different helicopters, which talked about the Apache, used about 4 minutes of video footage of the Apache that I got from a Reddit thread. Well, a week and a half ago I log on to YouTube to upload a new video, and I get a message that I've received a copyright strike. Not a claim, a strike, out of nowhere. Yet you can bet I was worried. What for, I thought? Well, it was for the British helicopter video, from about 4 months prior. The owner of the footage of the Westland Apache had used a Content ID tracker tool in order to find anybody using his video footage and submitted a request to YouTube to take it down, which they did, resulting in a strike on my channel. Now, what YouTube suggests you do in these circumstances is actually quite wrong of them, bordering on illegal. They will give you an email contact for the person who submitted the strike against you and say, take it up with them, completely washing their hands of the whole thing, or they allow you to file a counter notification formally, which if you do falsely or found to be wrong, you can land yourself in even more serious legal trouble. So of course I followed up the email contact outside of YouTube, and I said to the guy, hey, I just received a copyright strike on my channel from you and I'm not sure why, can you fill me in? He replied that I'd stolen the content from his video on the Apache, which until this point I literally did not know what footage was being claimed because up until now there's been no requirement for timestamps. But he linked me to his video on the Apache on his own channel, claiming it had in the video description, copyright 2014, content is not for use in any form without written consent. Well, number one, that's not how fair use works, buddy, you don't get to make the rules. And number two, I of course hadn't actually seen the video description because I didn't get the footage off of YouTube. Now, YouTube suggests that you can make your own terms with the claimant and convince them to retract the strike, which that's the illegal bit, because it suggests that you make a deal under the table outside of the legal system to quietly resolve a legal issue, or in other words, either threaten or bribe the claimant in order to shut them up. But I asked this person politely if he would consider removing the strike, as 95% of the video was not his content, many hours of work had gone into it, and I could very easily download it and then remove it permanently from my channel, edit the video file on my computer and re-upload it without any of his content. He chose simply not to reply to that, which means I can't download my own video, can't edit out the copyrighted content, so I lose the video and all the work done on it, even though 95% of it was completely legal, all because this person chose not to claim, but strike the video due to a simple mistake on my part. Now, remember when I said that the video went into the capabilities and history of these vehicles? That may have meant that the video would classify as fair use, right? And I could have filed a counter notification and attempted to fight the strike. But I'm rather new to this, and I don't know exactly what my rights are in this situation at all, so no way am I going to attempt to fight this and land myself in even more shit. At the very least, I'd need to hire a lawyer, and I have no idea how that works. I'm only 22 years old, for God's sake. The video already had around 26,000 views, 99% of which I had already earned the revenue for, so that can't be taken away from me, and it was unlikely to really get many more views, so I wasn't really missing out. But here's the really annoying part. You see, I look at my statistics, I look at my analytics, and I can easily notice trends and notice if/when something is up. And it's become very obvious that the strike, even though my YouTube channel isn't actually limited or restricted in any way, the strike has affected my SEO, basically meaning that my videos have disappeared from suggestions to other people, potential viewers, and I don't pop up nearly as frequently in search results, which has caused a massive downward spike in my viewership. Basically, if people aren't specifically looking for my new videos or coming to visit my channel, they're not going to see my content. So while the lad who owned the video on the Apache possibly was right in claiming it as his content, I don't know if it would have held up as fair use, but because he struck the video and had it removed, he didn't claim any of the revenue for it. But it still cost me quite a lot, all because I completely unwittingly used a 4-minute segment of video footage from his hand-recorded shaky cam video from over half a decade ago in my 30-minute video, which took hours upon hours of work. This clearly isn't weighted correctly. The funny thing is that his Apache video had about 1/3 the number of views that my British helicopter one did. Now you might think that makes it seem fairer that he would want it gone. It was a lot more famous than his video was. I use the term famous liberally, don't worry, I'm not that much of an asshole. But not only could I have credited him for the footage if he'd have just contacted me and asked for that, I wasn't actually taking any revenue from him, because nobody just looking for Apache footage would have elected to watch my War Thunder video rather than his Apache footage. That's the main point of the copyright system, to prevent the loss of income. Let's say if someone with a bigger channel than me, more subscribers, re-uploaded one of my videos, it would get found in the search results over my own, affecting my income. That has happened to me, by the way. Actually, while we're on the topic of just contacting, it would have been real nice if the guy who owned the Apache footage and had an issue with my using it could have contacted me via email asking me to either remove the video, credit him for the footage, or even pay him for it, any of which I would have gladly done, because, once again, I didn't actually know that I'd done anything wrong, and I ended up having to contact him personally through an email chain anyway. But nope, instead of actually talking to a human being, the better option for him was to just immediately file a legal request to strike my channel, damage my SEO, and take down a video that required hours of work, 95% of which didn't faze him at all. I doubt he even ever watched it. So thank you for that one, mate, and thank you for that one, YouTube, who are not actually fixing any of these issues at all with these new changes they're rolling out. Which means I get to sit here, salty bastard that I am, and laugh my ass off at them. And perhaps if you're a film reviewer, or hell, even a reaction channel that has to constantly fight off obviously illegitimate claims, you might think these new changes are great. They've made your life just that little bit easier, your career just that wee bit more secure. But for my type of content, I have to admit, I don't see any noticeable changes. Anyway, that took a lot longer than expected to go through. I hope you enjoyed it, but now it's time to get on to some of your lads' comments from last month's episode. Firstly, Wacky asks, what are your favourite vehicles in War Thunder? Well, this is quite a loaded question, but I'm going to have to say the M46 Patton for ground forces, and the relatively new Hunter F6 for aircraft. I've done several videos on, or featuring, the M46, and I keep meaning to work on a Hunter one because, my god, do I love that aircraft. The M46 to me is the epitome of an all-rounder. It's a fast medium that still has very nice armour, particularly against German or Russian APHE shells, and it's quite tactically diverse. You've got that high-penetrating heat FS alongside the M82 nuke round, and you really do switch between them very frequently if you know what you're doing. The M46 Tiger, the premium 7.0 pattern, was actually my first premium tank, and the first tank I ever played above battle rating 5.3 with the M18 Hellcat. And no matter what has happened to the game in the years since then, I still love the tank. Remind me to make some more gameplay videos on it sometime. The Hunter F6, on the other hand, oh, what can I say? It's beautiful, very nice to fly, but mainly it's those amazingly capable air-to-air missiles which make the aircraft so different from every other jet in-game. It's a completely different meta just for that vehicle alone. And it's nice to have a top-tier vehicle that's both British and competitive. Been about 3.5 years since we've had that. Next up, Sly Carl, who asks whether or not I have plans to move back to Scotland. Well, I must admit I very much want to, and it would service my YouTube channel better too, with faster internet speeds and cheaper access to PC components, particularly CPUs and GPUs. For some reason they are very expensive in Australia, although RAM is a lot cheaper than it is, for example, in America, so there is that. The thing is, it'd be difficult with Monica, who's my partner, who very much needs to stay in Australia for her own career. She actually works in anthropology with the indigenous people of Australia, and regardless, I do not have even close to enough money to consider emigrating back to the UK, which, I'll be honest, I'd probably move to England rather than Scotland if I did. That's where all my family lives these days. Although in 5 years' time, when I actually might be able to consider moving back, Brexit might have changed the playing field a little. We have no idea what's going to happen there, do we? Sergeant Vitty as well, he's another War Thunder YouTuber you lads should check out. Good try in the YouTube Cup, by the way, but he asked basically the same question as well. Hapalula asks, any countries you wish to visit, perhaps for military museums or the like? Once again, this is an enormous question, but the answer is quite simple. Everywhere. I want to go everywhere. Whether it's feasible or not, which it's probably not, there are very few places on Earth I would not be interested in visiting, besides maybe the Middle East, given that I'd most likely not visit anywhere after that, if you know what I mean. But France and Germany, Russia, America, definitely, I'm sure I'll make it there at some point. Egypt, although that has a similar issue these days, unfortunately. Canada, all sorts of places. I really could not give you an easy answer, and any place I do visit, of course, I'm just going to want to go back again and see more. Really, it just comes down to how many places can I manage to check off the list in my lifetime, because I'm probably never going to get them all. As for places I've been, obviously all across Great Britain, also New Zealand, Denmark, Malaysia and Japan, and all around Australia as well. I'm actually very fortunate that I've been quite well travelled relatively early on in life, but like I said, I'd happily go back to any of those places. There's always more to see. And since I've been so interested in military technology, I really haven't travelled all that much, so it'd be completely different the second time round, because these days I'd be looking at military museums to visit and such. So that probably wasn't quite the answer you were looking for, but there you go, thanks for sending that one in. Weeb Extraordinaire asks 3 questions, one of which was about what questions you should ask, so I'll answer that one quickly and say basically anything. But the main question was, when and how did you become interested in military history, and what role video games like War Thunder played in that development? Well, I've kind of always been interested in history, but as a child I was interested in medieval history, swords, knights, castles, you know. From the Vikings to the Saracens, ancient Greece and Egypt, I had a big fascination with all of that. But it really wasn't until I got into War Thunder itself that I started becoming particularly interested in 20th century military history. Part of the reason for that was that I finished high school, and in high school history all you learn about is the Holocaust, and while that is very important, I wouldn't dare deny that, it's such a depressing subject that I never really liked the idea of quote-unquote modern history. Really, the most modern historical topic I had an expressed interest in was the 30 Years' War, fought from 1618 to 1648, between the Holy Roman Empire, aka Germany and Austro-Hungary, and various other nations like Sweden, France, Denmark and Spain, etc. Even Britain got involved at one point. It really was a very interesting conflict because it paved the way for the unification of Germany for one thing, sowed the seeds of the Holy Roman Empire's complete dissolution, and there were a lot of religious and political aspects to it that I find very interesting. It was basically World War Zero. It was an enormous conflict, fielding the largest standing armies of any battle in human history, and claiming almost as many lives as World War One. I would even argue that due to the changes in the socio-economic and military state of Europe after the 30 Years' War, that it was a more significant conflict in our history than World War One was, but that is an absolutely enormous topic to get into. I mean, I've already written several essays on it in the past, but Weeb Extraordinaire, to answer your initial question, it really was War Thunder itself that got me interested in more modern history, because slowly but surely over time I'd pick up little bits of information, historical information, find it really interesting, and then go on to keep researching in my own time, basically going deeper and deeper into an enormous rabbit warren of military history and technology. Now that's not to say I had no interest in 20th century history. I mean, I always loved the Spitfires. I've been to Bletchley Park several times, which is the seat of Ultra, something I do want to make a video on at some stage. But before I started playing War Thunder, I could honestly not have told you the differences between a Sherman and a Tiger without reading from some book or plaque. 6 years on, and look at what I cover on YouTube. Who'd have thunk it? Next, Simply Glaceon asks, what's the funniest moment you've ever had playing a game? Well, since you didn't specify a video game, I get to talk about paintball. For my 15th birthday, I had a big party where me and I think 11 of my mates went paintballing. Now remember that May, which is when my birthday is, Australia in May is getting quite cold, and when you have cold skin, getting hit with these paintballs from close range is bloody painful. Anyway, it was our second last round of the day. We'd all burned through the 400 free rounds we were given at the start of the day long before this point. And so we were being a little conservative, trying to work as a team. Of course, we were kids, we all fancied ourselves army commandos, sneaking through the bushes, making the military hand signals, and using all the lingo that we'd heard in movies or in games like Call of Duty, seen in movies like Transformers, for God's sake. We thought we were so cool. Anyway, our team had obviously won this particular game. There was only one guy left on the opposing team, my mate Johan. So one of us found him by accident, actually. Stumbled across him and immediately ducked for cover, called for backup. You're such cool kids, calling for backup. Oh my god. So the four of us left on my team were sneaking around. We didn't know where this fifth guy had called out Johan's location from, so we were being cautious. None of us wanted to get hit and, quote-unquote killed by someone we outnumbered 5-1. So we were sneaking around, popping up. He'd pop up or show his gun and we ducked back down again. It really was quite tense. Someone would poke up and put pressure on while two more crawled just a little closer, got behind some cover, and then Johan would sneak back behind one bit of cover a wee bit further away and we'd be creeping up on him bit by bit. And it took a good long while before someone felt brave enough to Rambo in there and win the game. Just before he shoots, Johan stands up, arms in the air, and says, I've been out of rounds for 5 minutes. Oh my god. We spent that long stalking one player who we outnumbered 5-1, and he didn't even have any paintballs left. We all just looked around a bit dumbfounded before the overseer guy, who was watching the game, pulled out his own gun and shot each of us in the chest for being so stupid. Anyway, that really was a fantastic day. Really enjoyed it, would love to do it again. So thanks Glaceon for giving me an excuse to talk about that. Tony the Black Rhino says, really enjoyed your vlog to the army show a while back. Have you thought about doing any more? Perhaps air shows or museums? And yes, I definitely would love to visit some more museums and get some more footage for those types of events. The only issue is that there really aren't many of those types of things around my area, and some of those that I do get invited to, I'm actually not allowed to record any footage. See, through my stepfather's working on building the Royal Australian Navy's new Hobart-class air warfare destroyers, which are based on the Spanish F-100 class frigates, or Alvaro de Bazan, I probably butchered that pronunciation. But he works on them, he actually works for the Navy, and he's relatively high up, so I get invited to go to a few demonstrations, tests, and tour around some facilities. For example, I got to walk all through the AWD, see the different rooms and internals, and this is actually a ship that I might legitimately have served on, but perhaps that's a story for next time. But I wasn't allowed to record 90% of that, and what I was able to really wasn't worth a video of its own. And aside from that, there just aren't too many places to go that I haven't already been, and I made a video, for example, in the Port Adelaide Aviation Museum, which was also my face reveal on the channel back in the day, but they're only now looking like they might get in a couple of new exhibits over a year later, so it's only now become slightly relevant for me to go back there. And besides that, there's not much that's within accessible range. There's certainly no air shows, like aerobatic shows around South Australia, for example. So it'll probably consist of my going overseas, or at least travelling within Australia, before you get a larger number of those types of videos on the channel, although I do wish I could do it more often. It really is quite fun. Alfred No Yes Sumner, Will Pellowski, and Shitflyer, the scrub YouTuber extraordinaire himself, all asked variations on what other games I enjoy playing, for example, Apex, Counter-Strike, etc. I've got to admit, I tried CSGO and I absolutely could not stand it. I really don't gel too well with online first-person shooters, partially down to my internet being even worse for that than it is for War Thunder, but mostly down to the fact that I'm just not all that good at them. I always did like the zombies aspect of Call of Duty, and I think I'm allowed to say this, but I was damn good at it too. But when it comes to something like CSGO, it just seems to me like a lot of look down this particular corridor from which you can see through a doorway into a courtyard 70 meters away, and wait for some poor guy to show one single pixel of shoulder that you can blast with a sniper rifle and you win. Now, I'm biased, because I'm usually the one showing a pixel of shoulder and getting hit by someone I had absolutely no possible way of even seeing, let alone being able to hit in return. And I don't feel like, at least from my experience, that CSGO has the kind of running around being silly aspect that, for example, Call of Duty or Battlefield games have, simply by the fact that everyone's try-hard camping somewhere and not daring to move if they don't have to. In stark contrast, something like Titanfall, which is an online FPS with a pretty big twist, was one of my favourite games of all time, and I really have been meaning to pick up Titanfall 2 at some point, because that game's player base has recently seen somewhat of a surge ever since Apex became so popular. Apex I do kind of need to try. I'm not too fussed about that one for whatever reason, but right now my main other game to step into has been World of Warships or World of Tanks. I've said this a few times recently, trying to, I guess, ease you guys into the fact that I will do a World of Tanks video on the channel eventually, but I have really been enjoying that game recently. It's very different to War Thunder, mind, but I find that while War Thunder has become all about the simple spectacle of using these historical machines, World of Tanks is more focused on the strategic gameplay behind the machines. Each tank is really just a placeholder model, and you could replace them with chess pieces and not affect the game all that much. Replace the tanks with different types of medieval warriors, samurai, paladins, siege weapons, and you really wouldn't change the fundamentals of the game all that noticeably. It's certainly less immersive than War Thunder, but it is more based on a MOBA-style team strategy game, while War Thunder is more hype and spectacle. Along with that, Project Wingman, which you've been seeing in the background of this video, occasionally I'll jump into Skyrim, make a new character and roleplay for a while. Honestly, with my medieval/fantasy nerdiness, it's an absolute wonder I don't play Dungeons & Dragons, although maybe that's because I have no friends. I cry every time. But there really aren't too many others. My days are usually just too busy for any more than that, and with me focusing quite a bit on real-life military technology and discussion videos recently, when I'm not playing, I'm usually working on a video. Other than that, I've mentioned this before, but two of my old favourites have to be Monster Hunter Tri for the Nintendo Wii and Age of Empires 2 for PC. I used to play that was my first video game I ever really played, and I played it on a computer that was older than I was. And sometimes I still play it, create a world and see what happens. Try and, I don't know, build an empire, destroy someone else through conquest. I don't play online, but occasionally I'll jump back into it. Also, remind me to pick up the Halo Master Chief Collection for PC when that comes out, because I bloody loved Halo back when I had an Xbox. Anyway, that is more than enough for this video, I think. I have no idea how long this is going to be, but I do apologise to those of you who I didn't have time to answer your questions. And all of you, please do feel free to leave any in the comment section below. Anything you want to know about me, the channel, any topic you want me to talk about, go ahead and ask. The worst thing that can happen is I scroll on by. I really have enjoyed this one though, and I'm looking forward to getting into the swing of this series. I hope you lads are too, but until next time, thank you so much for watching. Please leave a like if you enjoyed, come join the social media, check out Patreon or hit the join button here on YouTube if you want to support the channel and fund my move back to the UK, or help me buy a car so that I can go around to some more museums and stuff. I hope you all have a lovely good day, and always remember, keep your bagpipes to hand, keep your kilt on, and I shall see you next video. I say a wee thank you to these lads for supporting me on Patreon. Captain Fubar, DA261, Gisli Gadarson, and Dark Recon. You lads are bra. If you wish to join them, come check out the link in the description below.